is Bushra Shad. Bushra, you can call me Bushra, and my presentation started already by itself. Okay, just ignore it. Never mind. So, my name is Bushra, and I'm here to represent you today, Islam. And I'm still waiting that now it starts. Okay, fine. And before I go into, on what we believe about our actions, worshipping, and so on, I would like to explain the meaning. Morning. So maybe we should wait.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. So, should I start? Can I start? Yeah? Okay. So again, girls? Hier, okay. Are you working for arbeitet ihr für die Reportage oder wie? Hier? Oder? In der Gruppe? Okay, yeah. I would like to actually have you in front of me to see you guys, not being so lost in the corner, So it would be nice either to sit on that table. Somehow, if it is too difficult, it's difficult, right? Yeah, it's fine. No, it's fine. I guess I can watch like this. Thank you so much. Okay. So, again, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Bushra, and I'm from Hanover. I came here to represent Islam. And before I go into the matter, I would like to explain you where it comes from. It comes from the Arabic word root letters. The language is built on root letters, where you can have different words with the same root letters and different meanings in that. So the root letters in this word is SLM, and if you apply it in the word Islam, it means obeying or submission. If you apply it in the word Muslims, just never mind, I can't change I don't know the grammatic words in English, never mind. Then it means someone who has obeyed or someone who has submitted, surrendered to God, in the sense of to God. And in the word salam, these root letters in that word means peace, in the sense of whoever has obeyed or submitted himself towards God, he will achieve his peace with himself, peace with his environment. And it is different than the other religions in that term that other religions are mostly named after their founder or starter or after nationalities, like Judaism for the Jews, Buddhism from Buddha. In this case, it is more an attribute which you achieve in that moment when you are someone who has obeyed. Then you are a Muslim. Whoever you call yourself doesn't matter. It's a general word which you can get. It's an attribute which you get on top of it. And if you look at the roots, what I'm going to explain you later on, you will see it's nothing new. It's pretty much kind of in other scriptures as well. You will see the fingerprints of most so different religions in Islam. It's very fascinating, and still it's nothing new. And in special, let me tell you that this is an Abrahamic religion. It's a religion where the roots go back to the Prophet Abraham. From his line came the messenger for this. The prophet is called Muhammad. And from the same line, From Abraham came Moses, the Torah, came Jesus with the Bible. From the other son, Abraham had two sons, Ishmael and Isaac. From the other son is Ishmael, and from him came Muhammad from his line with the final message in a chronicle way. First came the Torah, then the Bible, then the Quran. And if you look at the roots, it's again nothing new. What kind of roots are they? For example, to protect the poor, to protect the needy, to help the needy people, to protect the orphans, to be respectful against elders, to be merciful against children, and so on. And therefore, if you try to obey, you will, through these roots, achieve after a time your own peace. You will be able to protect which is the most valuable part of your body, from which you only have one. It is your heart. To protect your heart from getting hurt in the metaphorical sense, your psychology, as well in the literal sense, your body. And to protect the hearts of others from getting hurt, because others in your environment has rights as well. You're not the king on earth. With that sense, all rules are built on it, like a manual how to live. Before I explain, let us go into the beliefs, yeah. Let us go deeper into the beliefs. What kind of fundamental beliefs do exist in Islam? So if you believe in that point, then you will get automatically that attribute as a Muslim. This is believing in one God, believing in the chosen prophets, believing in the revealed books, believing in angels, believing in the hereafter, believing in destiny and fate. And I would like to begin with the first point, which is, for me, the most important, and also from the perspective of Islam, the most important point. This is the belief in one God. And I would like to share with you how I came to this conclusion as well. And it's a thought experiment. It's a thought experiment where everyone maybe can understand why I came to this conclusion. By the way, I've made this as well with you, as you can remember. It is, and you know it as well, Dora. It is an example, pretty easy. For example, if I tell you guys that we should leave this room, yeah, nobody's in this room, and we will come after an hour later, and we will see the chairs are in a specific order afterwards, in order like a cycle. Let's say it's in a cycle, okay? Without seeing who did it, without being here, you can conclude to what? That it must be a human being who came here inside, who put it in a cycle, right? Have ever someone from you seen that person? No, he didn't have to see that person. It's not needed to conclude to that way, to this conclusion. Why is that not needed? Because you wouldn't believe me if I say the window was open, the wind came in, it blowed every chair in one cycle, isn't it? If I give you any explanation which has not to do with us, you wouldn't believe it. And the reason why is because you have something which distinguishes you from anything else, from any creature else, and this is your intellect. This is the way how you can think, the way to think logic, to conclude backwards. You can see a reaction, and you are able to conclude backwards who might be the actuator of that reaction without even witnessing it. Let me give you another example. That is in my bag. One of my also favorite examples. And this is my Samsung. I would tell you how this came into being. You wouldn't believe me, it's so cool. This came for, many decades into being, the Samsung. It happened through an explosion of lava with a volcano. The lava came up from the mountain, it crashed against this rock, against that rock. Through special weather conditions, it got the form of Samson. It got all the elements which is needed through the magma and all the rocks and all the dying animals inside of the magma. And in the end, it got that shape through crashing around, landed on the ground, and while I was jogging, I found my smartphone on the ground. So, well, I see some of you are smiling, because it's obvious that it sounds insane here, what I'm telling here. But the point is, would you believe me if I tell you that I have my doctor in chemistry, in geography, and in physics? And if I come here with a theory, which is more complex that you don't understand it, maybe, but if I bring up a theory why this Samson came into being through an explosion inside of a magma and later on, on Earth, would you believe me that? No, you wouldn't. Why? Because I don't have to explain you that actually, because you have the ability, and this is here inside, the solution, even I don't have to tell you that it cannot exist through coincidence or from, that elements who are coming to this, end point. To have that elements are putting themselves together to have this shape, this which we call Samson. Why? Everyone knows how complex a Samson is. Everyone knows how many plastic engineers are behind this, electric engineers are behind this, and so on. Computer engineerings. They are all behind of this little tiny Samson, right? You know it. Have anyone from you ever seen the doer of your Samson, the creator of your Samson? Have you seen him? Have you met him? No, you didn't. Still, you know it. You can conclude backwards. This is the element which you have, the intellect. And this is why I ask myself, how is it possible, guys, that the universe which works perfectly in a design, without any error in its beauty, it could be even ugly, it's not, it's beautiful as well. How this works without any error. And if I look further, deeper, the earth. What would happen if the earth goes, and we know it, even 1 inch closer to the sun? Everything would burn down. 1 inch further from the sun, everything would freeze to death. If it stands on its state like this, one part in shadow forever, no life would exist anymore. We know it through scientists, right? Or if you look even more in detail, what are all the living creatures here? Not dead elements or bodies. The living creatures, and not from each only one. Not only one Samson came from one lava explosion. Even in the case of human beings, 7 billion at the same time are working without error. And this should be through coincidence. And even a minute ago, you could hardly believe me that my Samson came out from a volcano through coincidence, which is even not working perfectly, which is even not a living creature. And in this case, it might be just through an explosion or whatsoever that the entire universe came through coincidence into being. And this is what I ask myself, that behind this, it must be a creator who understands from design and beauty, and special, who must be all wise because everything works perfectly. The fish is in the water, the bird is in the sky, not the opposite, it would die. And he must be all knowledgeable as well, how we made in such a detail which we cannot figure out till this day. He must be all powerful because to create this, he must have a power which overcomes this. And therefore, I came to the conclusion, guys, and these are questions which are mentioned in the Quran. Look at the nature examples to conclude that there must be a designer, that this cannot come just through coincidence into being. And one chapter explains what God is. And I would like to read you, it's just 4 verses, nothing special in that sense that it's too much. And it's in the chapter Sincerity. Say He is Allah, by the way. Allah implies the word God in Arabic. And it's nothing new again. It's from the Old Testament. It's mentioned in the Old Testament, the Torah, as well as Allahim. Plural in the sense of, to show the respect to His Majesty. To His Majesty. Say He is Allah, God, who is one. Allah, the eternal refuge. He neither begets nor is born, nor is there to Him any equivalent. Why is He one? If you go to this through thought experiments, you will come again to that conclusion that it is very difficult to believe that there are powers which are equal power. Higher minds and equal power. Because if the other wants something what the other doesn't, who will win with equal power? That is against the definition of an almighty. Because in that moment, He is not almighty. If there are 2 higher mights or many, He will lose that. It contradicts the definition of God. That's why we believe in one God. And it's pretty much, it makes sense. And that's, if you go to that thought experiment. He neither begets nor is born. He's above it. We need to procreate each other this way. But He doesn't need it. And like pretty much the doer of this, He doesn't have to be the dad of this machine. Or nor is there to Him any equivalent. Why should He look like His creation? For what reason? The doer of this doesn't look like a Samson. He doesn't need, He stays above. Mostly whatever you draw, pain or whatsoever, it doesn't look like you. Do not look, it doesn't look. Yeah, sorry for my English, by the way. So this is, which pretty much explains the essence in what a Muslim believes in terms of God. Believing in the prophets. No surprise, we believe in the same prophets as in the Bible, in the Torah, the 23 prophets, and we believe that there were way more since God sent to each community on earth since beginning the time a prophet to warn them. They had a job, the prophets. They had the job to warn them that there is a higher might, that you should reflect, that you should take into consideration that this life is a test, that a next life exists, that you will die and will be judged afterwards for all your doings, that the victim will get its right, and the oppressor will get his punishment, the day of judgment. And they warned for this day, and they had another special work to do, and this is to be examples for us, good examples. Therefore, if you look at the characteristics which are mentioned about prophets, they had all the same. They were famed before they were chosen even in their community as noble people, honorable people, trustworthy people. Even the Prophet Muhammad, he had the nickname Al-Amin, the trustworthy one, before he became a Muslim. And it doesn't make sense that God choose someone who's a liar to tell the truth. It doesn't make sense. So people were chosen by God who were also known for the trustworthiness, I'm not sure. And in case of Muhammad, we believe that he is now the latest and final messenger, that after him no one will come. And if you, look in the past, you heard from all the prophets, and God says also in the Quran, the stories, they will never be forgotten. And indeed, these names, if you're an atheist or not, it doesn't matter. You have heard from Noah and the ark, from Adam and Eve, from Muhammad, from Jesus, from Moses. You have heard of them, even if you're not a believer. It's a story for the humankind. And Yeah, and Muhammad was chronically the latest one, and after him we never heard of any of them, of any new one. And yeah, so therefore what they did is they documented at that time the actions of the Prophet Muhammad, and these are called Sunnah. And with the Quran and the Sunnah, these are the main two sources for the Muslim to act upon. These are the sources, the proofs. If you want to prove something, you have to bring one of those. And even in the case of Sunnah, to protect, to be deceived from changing documentation whatsoever, that person has to prove the lie, the way it is narrated, and so on. It's very complex. Otherwise, you have the right to reject it. It's better to stay and safe than believing in nonsense. So, and the Quran, in the case of the Quran, we will come to it. I will tell you that later on. And these are the two main sources in Islam. Oh, and there we are. Actually, there you can see the Arabic. No, is the mouse not moving? Yeah, the Arabic lines. It's written in Arabic. It came in Saudi Arabia to Muhammad. He lived in Mecca during that time, in a time where polytheism was very common. That was the city for polytheism. And he came up with monotheism and said to the people that there is only one God to whom you should pray. And we believe in the Psalms, in the Torah, in the Bible, as well in the Quran. And but we only act upon the Quran, because the Quran itself, first of all, says in the Quran, God says, "Now I will take the Quran under my protection. It is the final message for the humankind, not just only for Jews or whatsoever, for the entire humanity." And the people took care to not translate it, because you can't translate something word by word. That, you know, if I give you a scripture and say, yeah, now translate it, you won't be able to translate it word by word into your own language. Information will get lost. You will have a space for interpretation. So therefore we call the translation what? Not the Quran. We call the translation, it is the translation of the meaning of the Quran. To just secure, don't rely on the translation, to not have the problem with the Bible, which we have with the Bible, just to prevent it. And on top of that, if it is a scripture, that's a problem in what we had with the Torah. In the case of scripture, anyone can come and change it. You just have to leave this book here. Anyone can change the words or through Photoshop or whatsoever. Therefore, to prevent this, the people started for one whole century to memorize the Quran entirely. It was taught oral, that you know it by mind, that nobody can say, here, you know, I have it here, that's my proof. That you know, that you can say, you know what, I know it by mind. And these people are called hafiz, and you can be a hafiz as well to this day. They learn it oral to this day. It's, you know, it's a chain. And someone from China can come and prove me, check me. If I would say, here, I can a part, I memorize a part, he could check me if I tell him the truth or not. And if you check the Qurans as well, the people did a good job as well, and the prophecy came into being. It's not changed, the original scripture, till this day. If you go from west to east on earth, from south to north, if you go in the museums and look at the Qurans, letter for letter, word for word, it's the same. So therefore, to not go into risk of doing something wrong or worshipping the wrong way, we act upon the Quran, and that was also the reason why the Bible came. The Torah was changed, the Bible came. The Bible, we had the problem with the Bible as well, that Quran came. It's not something, it's a decree, it must happen how it looks like. And the Bible and the Torah and the Psalms were also under the communities had to take it under protection. They couldn't. That was the problem. Therefore, it is extra mentioned in the Quran now this time that God will take it under protection, that it is not going lost because it's the final message. And by the way, God has not the responsibility to send us scriptures to remind that there is a higher mind. Because through our intellect or the thought experiment even, we came, without speaking it out, to one and the same conclusion as well. But he did it out of his mercy. He should not have to do it. He has not the job to guide us. He could leave it by us, leave us by ourselves, but he did it out of his mercy. Believing in the angels and the...
May I ask a short question to the books? Is the Hadith and Sharia is not a real book? It's only Sunnah?
No, Hadith is Sunnah. Yes, Hadith are all the actions of the Prophet and sayings and doings, but which concerns the religion, we call Sunnah. For example, if the Prophet likes the color green, an example, it's his personal taste. It has nothing to do with the religion. If I like yellow, I'm not going to hell, or it's not a sin whatsoever. It's his taste. If he loves chicken, it's his taste. These are narrations which we call hadith. But that part which concerns the religion, this is called Sunnah. And this is a source. And another source, not the Sharia, it's the Quran itself. And from that are the rules for the entire, your doings and actions, which are written in it. If you just extract this, how to make an estate, how are the rights between families, because we are social creatures, we live in communities. It needs rules. So therefore, all the rules are called Sharia. These are the Gesetzbuch. No, not Gesetzbuch. Gesetze einfach. Laws. Sharia are laws.
Is it
the word
Sharia or is it?
It's inside of the Quran, Sharia, but to act upon it, you call it, this is really deeper things, but we call it fiqh. And this is what you understand from that Sharia which is written inside of it. Sharia are the laws of God, which is given for a community who believes in the Quran. And if you read it, some may understand differently than you do, right? For that, you need a lot of knowledge about history, about the life of the Prophet. You should know all the narrations and all different subjects and so on. These people were people who studied it for over more than 40 years to understand, okay, this fiqh rule from that Sharia law might be this and this. And the Muslims act only upon what if in the entire world most scholars are in the same, chooses the same direction. So if someone says, I think it's allowed to do this, and 99% are saying no, from China till here, then the Muslims, the people, they don't act upon it. And also, it's very obvious. I mean, they are telling the way how they came to this conclusion. They're proving, because Muslims have one thing, they ask for proofs between ourselves as well. We ask for proofs. Prove it. If you say that this is in Islam, you have to prove it, because to not being deceived, to prevent it. And proving through what? The end proofs are the Quran and the Sunnah. And especially the Quran. If that person cannot bring the Quran, a verse from the Quran, he's out of game in that sense. So, in what we believe in angels, creatures made of light, who are here, who are made to worship God. By the way, I have to keep the time in check. Yeah. Okay, who are made, who are here to worship God. We cannot see them. They are connecting links, like Angel Gabriel is a connecting link between God and the messengers, the prophets, or to whomever God wants to send him. He's an archangel. The angel of death, these are also not the new ones. These are also mentioned in the Old and New Testament as well. And in other religions, you can find the angel, creatures who are coming, taking your soul and so on. And angel of death, Angel Michael is responsible for the entire universe nature. You know, the nature here. And Angel Israfil is only waiting for the command of God to call out for the apocalypse, to start the apocalypse, the end of the earth. And therefore, the beginning of the hereafter. And before I go into this, to tell you what the difference between angels and human is, I would like to get into this as well. And that is that angels don't have the opportunity to choose or not in worshiping God. They are made to worship. They have to follow the rules. In our case, it's in two spheres. We have one sphere, as I told you, a Muslim is who? Someone who has obeyed God, right? It's an attribute. If you believe in God, who has made the rules for Earth, like gravity, physical rules, chemical rules, then all atoms who are following these rules, all molecules, are in that sense, in the strongest sense, Muslims. So one body part of us, this is our metabolism, everything what we have not under our control, which are working after rules which are made from God, are obeying the rules of God, are obeying God, are Muslims. This is one sphere of our body. The other sphere is the free will, to have the free choice, to decide if I want to obey or worship to a higher might, if I want to believe in that or not. And if you do so, then you are in the holistic sense a worshipper. Then you have combined both spheres, and that's why it makes a human to one of the best creatures of God, because he chose to believe, and which distinguishes us from creatures which are forced to believe. So, then we believe in the hereafter. I told you here the archangel who calls out for the last day. The hereafter is a day which starts after our recreation. And God says in the Quran, as a response to people who came to Muhammad and said, how can our dead bones get new life? As a response, it's written that God say to them that they were nothing before it. So it's even easier to give the bones life, if you think about it. And that's why it is not so something which sounds weird to have next life as well. If you look through ancient of times, through archaeology foundings, what had all the civilizations common? From the beginning of the first civilization, what we found, or the Maya temples, whatsoever, you know what they had all in common? Not everyone had a school, not every one of them had a hospital, but all of them had temples to worship. So it is a part that it is implemented in us to believe in something. And the civilizations were always worshipping, and they were believing in the next life. If you look about the pharaohs, whatsoever, they are always connected with the next life. And as I told you, to each community came a prophet. But either they were killed, or the people didn't believe whatsoever, so that the new prophets came and came and came and came to the final one. And then the day of judgment begins, where God asks you for each and every deed, what you have ever done, nothing will be lost. That's the day when I said, where the victim will get its right back, and the oppressors will get the punishment. And on on the opposite way. That's why we call this life a life of test. It's a test to keep us in check or to not. And which weighs more, your good deeds or bad deeds? You go either to paradise or to the hell. And it will be a day of judgment where no one will be judged unfair. It will only judge, they will be judged of their own doings, what they did through their own choice. And God mentions in the Quran, no one is responsible for something what he didn't know. In the sense of, if I didn't know that this exists in Islam, this rule whatsoever, and I commit it, I won't be held responsible for it. Why? Because otherwise God wouldn't be just. If he judges me on something what I didn't know, in the honest way. So, and we believe in destiny, since God knows the future as well. We explain ourselves always when, if it's coincident, if something happens, like I see my friend in a shopping mall without having an appointment with her, I call it coincidence. But for God, from the perspective of God who knows everything, it's more destiny. And yeah, what else? Okay, these were the beliefs. And the thing is, the special thing in Islam is that that religion is very much practiced, very much applied. It's a very practical religion, which can imply in your life easily. And the thing is that it is easy to say, I love God. It is easy to say, oh, I obey God. And afterwards you do nothing for him. That's easy to say. It is easy to say, I'm a fan from Beyoncé. Yeah, but what does a fan for Beyoncé mean? She goes and listens to all the music. She remembers, she memorizes all the texts. She looks how she dresses. She looks how she moves in her clips. That's what a fan does. And if you are someone who believes in a higher mind, and compared to Beyoncé, you can't compare it, of course. And what should a believer do? He should prove it that he obeys him. That's why in Islam our actions involved as well. And that begins with the testimony. These are the most important, moreover, obligations what has to do with worshipping to God. And we call it the 5 pillars in Islam as well. And it starts with saying the testimony. As I told you, belief is something which is in your heart. If that is in check, if you think, okay, I might be Muslim, then the first time when you call it out through the testimony, I witness that I believe in no gods except one, and then Muhammad is his messenger as well. In that moment, when you say it, you will be seen officially as a Muslim, and no mosque, the church in Islam is called mosque, no mosque, scholars, or whatsoever, or the priests are called imams, no imam or whatever has the might ever to call you a non-Muslim. And also the opposite, it's not allowed in Islam, that is called takfir, that I go and point out, so he's an unbeliever, she's a believer, unbeliever, believer. That's not my job, it's the job of God. So to differentiate our jobs, to stay outside. If somebody decides something, have respect and leave him by himself. And then if you say it immediately, that obligation started. The 5 times prayer, there are 2 types of prayer. One prayer is supplicate. To supplicate, to ask God for something. And the other prayer is more worship. This is what is meant here with 5 times prayer. Worship, and if you interestingly look at how it is done, it is again the same picture as you see through all the archaeological foundings, what you know from movies, like, this position of, how to worship in the old civilizations or whatsoever, who lived in the forests and so on, that they worship like this. Have you ever seen this picture? Do you have this picture in mind? So this is pretty much also the same in Islam. And it is that we lay our most respected part of our body, this is our face, on the ground. On the clean ground, okay? It's clean. On the clean ground where we praise God. And it's an entire movement where it starts like this, and we bow ourselves, and you will see it in other religions, not only monotheism religions. It's a fingerprint of the way how to pray towards a worshipper, higher mind, as a worshipper. And this is here in the most detailed way, renewed again, brought into life again. And here is a picture of the pilgrims. These are all human beings, by the way. These all black points are the heads of the people. If you look how they are dressed like monks in temples. Have you ever seen the dresses, the orange colors and so on? This is the same in white. As you can see, again, a fingerprint of the religion from the past. So it's not that everything is lost. It is just brought into life again. And that was a mosque. This is called Kaaba, kubus, the form, kubus, and therefore they call it in Arabic Kaaba. It's just covered with something. Underneath you can see the stones. It is a temple to worship, made from Abraham, Prophet Abraham in the past with his son Ishmael. And before they prayed in that direction, before the revelation came to the prophet to pray in that direction, they prayed towards where? Towards Jerusalem. Why? Because Abraham lived there with his other son Isaac and worshipped there as well. So they prayed in that direction till the revelation came to change their direction. And why? And you will see them here in prostration, in a row. Why in a row? To strengthen the community. It has more reasons. To have one direction while praying. If somebody comes, we are just making a line and so on. To pray in one direction, not just randomly. This is what you do while supplicating, but not during worship, to have an order. And this is during pilgrimage, so that there are so many people in one spot. This is once a year, and whoever, you have to do it one in your life, one time only. And only if you have the money, and if your health is in check. It should not, the religion, that is also mentioned in the Quran, is not to burden someone, to overburden. It's to ease your life and not to have an overburden. And therefore, I would like to show you a video where, first of all, the azan, the Bosnian friends must know it, the azan, the call for prayer, like the bells in the church and so on. In the mosque, we call just out, yeah? We call the people to the prayer. The prayer time is now arrived. And this is called adhan, and this sounds pretty much like this. And you can see here that picture, and these are all the people who are during the pilgrimage there, and they are not sitting in that temple, therefore it's closed. They closed the mosque because there are 2 million people in one spot. Nobody can go inside. It's too dangerous. They closed it. They prayed around it. These are all people here, by the way. It's going outside, inside the city. So many are there. And they're staying in line to pray. And there's just only one person who's leading the prayer. That's all. And the doings, what they are doing during pilgrimage, is something which is related on the actions of Abraham as well. He used to meditate and to supplicate to God, to praise Him while he is going around the Kaaba. And this is which is brought into life in that religion. And what is said here is Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. God is greater, God is greater. Whatever you think of a great thing, like universe, God is greater. To seem always upper, greater than whatever you can imagine. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah is the testimony. I witness, this is the way how you call to prayer. That person witnesses first that he's believing in no God besides Allah. And that Muhammad is a messenger as well. And it goes further. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadun Rasulullah. Hayya al-salah, come to prayer, come to prayer. Hayya al-falah, come for the good things, for a good deed, come for a good deed. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. God is greater, God is greater. La ilaha illallah. There is no God besides Him. And so that's the way how to call. This is the mosque. I'm sorry, it's very tiny. I wanted to show you that, but I actually couldn't figure out the internet. And this is how it is there. It's not so full. They're outside the pilgrimage, and now the people are wealthier than earlier. They have the money to travel, and they feel that they have the obligation to go there. And I went to that place as well 2 times. I made my pilgrimage 2 times. Why 2 times? I should not have to do it, but it's such a spiritual moment. You are in peace with yourself there. It's forbidden during the pilgrimage. It takes 3 days to harm anything. Yeah, you're not allowed to take a flower from the ground. Your pilgrimage could be invalid. Or say something where, come into arguing. Your pilgrimage could be invalid. You even don't cut your hair, shave yourself. For 3 days it's okay. And just to focus on one thing in worshipping. And different nationalities, of course, from, I don't know, America till Cape Town. And side by side, Malaysian people, and where we just say Assalamu alaikum, alaikum assalam, so peace be. This is the greeting, which you know it from the Jewish people as well, shalom, salam on you. It's nothing new, as you can see. And the 2 last points are the obligatory charity. The zakat is obligated on people who are in income which they don't touch for an entire year. If you have money on the bank which you don't touch for an entire year, then you are obligated to give it into charity, the 2.5% of it. Why? Either to be motivated to invest it, because for what sense do you have money if you don't invest it? Just to collect it? Or if you don't want to invest it, you give it at least to the poor who have now the chance to invest it for yourself, to start a life. And this is obligatory also only for people who have an amount of money, not for who's already poor and wants to collect a few pennies. It's not an obligation for them, only for the more rich people. Like that's an amount. It starts with $3,000. If you have $3,000 on the bank, which you don't touch for an entire year, then you are obligated to give 2.5% of it away to needy people. And the last point is the fasting in month of Ramadan. Ramadan is a month in the moon calendar. We're acting here after the sun calendar, and there exists the moon calendar, as you know, and this is the Arabic term for 1 month in it. And in that month, we believe that the Quran, and this is also mentioned in the Quran as well, that this is revealed, that the Quran was revealed. And as I told you, it's more seen, if you look at it from that perspective as a believer, as a mercy for the humanity. So this is a very sacred month where the Muslims are doing more worship than in the entire rest of the year, where they fast. They don't eat from the dawn till the sunset, nor drink. And this is nothing new as well. You know it from the Christianity, the vow of silence. They fast to speak. And these are connected with one thing. These are our desires. To keep our desires in check. That controlling your tongue. And this is the most action what a human being can fulfill per day. You can speak 10,000 words, but you can't do 10,000 things on one spot. But you can speak it. And this is counted as an action as well. And more for the worse than for the good, oftentimes might happen. Say, vow of silence has this wisdom behind it. The fast, in fasting of eating something, this is also interesting because to eat food, to drink something is even something which is allowed. It is not, it's beyond this. It's something we depend on it. We would die if we don't eat, right? And this is the point where you again prove first your piety. And second, this is the biggest worship what you can do, because it's above almost the entire day. If I want to pray, I pray, and after that I have to go and eat something, I have to interrupt it. Whatever worship. This is the longest worship what we can do. And it's very spiritual because you are not eating, you are not focusing on that, you are too weak to do also worse things. You don't have the power to... You don't have the power to talk with people about, I go now shopping. No, this is not the month of going shopping. This is not the month to spend money to fulfill your wishes of this life. It's a month of reflecting why you are here. And that strengthens indeed for the next entire year to the next Ramadan. And we have the theme of Reformation, right? So I would like, I've heard 2 days before I came here, so I observed the tree inside because I can explain through the tree very easily. In Islam, it is a prophecy that every century there will be a scholar, a very good scholar and trustworthy scholar, like as you know from Luther, who knows the scriptures and everything, who is bringing alive things which are forgotten in Islam, or applying the Sharia, the rules which are mentioned here in the Quran, to that circumstances where you live in. We are living in the 21st century, not, it's different. Every century changes. And the community are changing. Community is changing as well. So the rules, we have a space for interpretation to match it on that community, on that place. But the sense of, I give you an example. Why I put a tree to explain that picture is the source must be the same. Whatever is said, as I told you, this religion is very focusing on sources. That person, whoever, even if it is a scholar, and special scholars are doing it, they're going back to the sources, and the roots, like in this tree, must be the Quran and authentic narrations of the Sunnah. Authentic. If there is any doubt, then it is out of case. So it is invalid. The Quran is accepted. And if it is not in that, if you don't prove it with that, it's called sects. Then you have sects there. And it's out of Reformation. It has nothing to do with Reformation. And here, like the leaves, different leaves, these are the fruits which you can get, unless it is in the frame of Quran and Sunnah. The example, the last thing, practical example. If I want to touch the Quran, if I want to touch it, I have to take the ablution. I clean myself as a form of respect before I touch Holy Scripture, which includes the words of God. The Jewish people are doing it also before they touch the Torah. So, what if I have an app in my phone which includes the Quran? Do I have to take the ablution? Do I not to take? Or is it free? Can I just touch it without ablution? Oh, my phone is open itself. So, that's the question which we ask now in our century ourselves. For example, and the scholar said, if you open that up, and the Arabic scripture is there without any translation, the Arabic original scripture is there, then you have, if you want to touch the screen, you have to take the ablution. If you close it, like it's here somewhere in an app, it's inside of the phone, in the chip somewhere, or in the cloud of internet, then you don't have to take ablution to touch your phone, because that itself is not the Quran. Not anymore in that sense of the screen part was only the Quran while we were opening. This is the gap, this is the way how it can be applied to each century, to each community, with the scientific findings, like cigarettes are more prohibited in Islam. why we know that it concludes into cancer, and it's not allowed to harm your body. We know it, and that it can conclude to cancer, and therefore most scholars see it as prohibited. But still, if it is only the most, therefore some Muslim, you have to research by yourself to whoever can prove it better, if it is prohibited or not, or if you can prove it better whatsoever. It's your free choice in accepting it or not. And it's very, they laid it very open, so that you can go and understand why they did it like this, why they come to that conclusion. So guys, either we have two options. Either we can do a question round, or I took under my opinion, the 5 most important points in Islam, which the people love to talk nowadays. In case of Islam, these are the hijab, the covering, the headscarf of the women, the covering of her body. The second point was the women's rights, racism, terrorism, and I forget always the last point, I don't know why. The 5th point. Halal versus pork and alcohol. Why do Muslims, why don't they eat any pork? So, either we can do a question round, or I can just go through that and explain just a few hints. It's up to you guys. If you have any questions, you can ask now, or you can wait, I can go through that. Maybe a lot of questions are answered already through that.
I just have one short question. You
Yes, sir.
said that it depends on what good you did and what bad you did.
Actions, yeah.
It depends on the actions if you go to heaven or hell. So you don't believe, I concluded that you don't believe in forgiving sins, and you also
No.
you only go to heaven. So you don't actually have to believe in God to go to heaven.
No, actually, first of all, if somebody is not believing in God, he has not a problem with the hell, because he doesn't believe that the hell exists. Therefore, the solution is pretty fine for that person. The other aspect is God is the All-Merciful. He has different names, the All-Merciful. Nothing which is connected with punishing, connected to the last movie. He has no name with that, the All-Merciful. And he is more merciful than we are. He can forgive sins in every type. With one sin, one thing, he won't accept till the moment when you are dead. If you didn't regret that sin, it's over. He doesn't forgive you that. And this is if you worship something else than him.
So it's not actually like
Or besides him.
So it's not actually like that.
So if you are there, however sin you did, the judger is God. You will held accountable for every deed. But it's relative. I can't know that if there is something, for example, an animal who needs something to drink, or it's dying, and I didn't know it. I just went and helped that animal. That it was such an act from the side of God, as a merciful act from me, that God loves me even more, and he shows his mercy in the day of judgment and forgives that. Then it's up to him. It's not up to him. That's why I said we cannot weigh it. I cannot weigh the difficulties of the other person. I cannot weigh what kind of struggle you showed in your life. Some people are born in a non-believing family, for example. That person is as the only one believing in God, only believing, has to go through so much struggle. He has to struggle so much. He has to go through so much trouble. I cannot imagine. It's not compared to me, in my case, who was born in a believing family, who even, I can easily go and practice my religion, easily believe in God without any troubles. So the way is very, we cannot weigh it. I cannot weigh the struggle of that person. And this is what God can. This is meant by, this is in the surah, in one of the ladies, by not even an atom weight of a good deed will be lost. And this starts with the intention that you want to do something good. You will get even reward. And a sin is only counted one time, while a good deed is counted 10 times to make it easier in life. If you do something wrong, it is recommended after the sayings of the Prophet, do something good after it, immediately, as fast as possible, because you don't know when you die. So, again, for a non-believer, there is no problem. For him, it's no problem. For a believer, we do believe that there are Christians who are acting upon the Bible, who are believers in the sense of God. Because God says, and they are believers, Christians, and they are believers, Jews, in the minority, but they exist. So I have not the right to judge or to conclude who is a believer and who not. I'm not a God, and it's not my job. It's out of my case. So everything if you can see, it's more a selfish religion in the sense of you have to focus on yourself. Just leave the people by themselves, because belief starts here in your heart, with yourself. Nobody can force you. There you are free. In your heart. Somebody can put me under pressure to do something, but if I don't do it out of belief, for whom I'm doing it? What the heck? Or, if somebody hinders me in doing it, I had the intention, and God knows it. So, any other questions? Oh, should I go? Yes, sure.
Why God accepts that there are really terrible accidents or great poverty or something like that?
First of all, this is not paradise where we live in. This is the test. The test to act correctly, to act just. And here are circumstances where people are living in poverty, are living in, rich people have in the sight of God very problems, actually, because they will they have to give responsibility. They will be held accountable for their material which they could give to needy people. And the needy people are proven with what? With patience. And the whole thing in this word is to reflect about your own situation, why you are here. And again, it's not called paradise. This is not the word to live in a perfect way. It's here to come to the conclusion that God exists, to use your intellect. And this can poor people do, rich people. Rich people have more problems with that. People who are fame has the most problem with that because they hang the most on this world. And people they lose their balance the most. The balance between this life and next life the most. Therefore, the most of them are killing themselves with drugs and stuff in the end. The fame people like Whitney Houston. But never mind. The thing is, if you look at the poor, they show their struggle, and therefore it's said, never be harsh against the poor and needy people, because between them and God is not a wall. Not a wall. If they are praying against you, most in the case it's accepted. That's why Muslims are very taking care of needy people. Mostly the king of charity. Yes, here I give. Because it's a proof for ourselves. It's in Prüfung. It's a test for everyone. Yeah, in exam, a test for everyone in a kind of way. Like someone who comes blind to earth. Like someone who has no feeling for the other gender, opposite gender. It's a test. I have my own test. If somebody has not on his physically a test, in his psychology, he will have a test. If you weigh it in the same way, it will weigh the same. So let's go to the next point. It's the hijab. It's nothing new or surprise. It's written in the old scriptures as well. If you look about the wisdoms, you can find some. Man has to cover themselves as well, from navel to the knee, in the very loose way, so that you cannot see their body parts. And it's important to be, it's mentioned in the Quran, the woman has to cover herself except her face and her hand to be recognized as a believer. You know the picture of Mary, how she looks like? And this is pretty much what the Muslims brought into life again. They're practicing. And this is again the difference between only believing. Prove your belief through actions. Yeah, women's rights. Oh, this is very interesting because a lot of people love to claim that in Islam there are no women's rights. That's interesting. Is it sharp enough or? Oh, okay. You can read, right? Actually, under my limited view, I think the women's rights are even more than the men's rights, but we're different creatures, we have different needs, and therefore it doesn't make sense to say, yeah, you have the right to have a makeup and you too as a man. Yeah, so therefore it's different, we are different. So we have different rights, and the women's rights it starts with something very sweet. It's a statement of the Prophet where he says that if you get a baby girl, your family will be blessed. It's not in the case of boys, sorry, I didn't tell you that, but we were talking about it with Dora. And if you get a baby girl, your family will be blessed in some way, through peace, or your material will grow, you will have more money in that month, whatsoever. And if you even raise 3 daughters in piety up the doors of paradise as a parent, the doors of paradise will be open for you. This is also a statement of the Prophet. A dowry. What's a dowry? You can ask for money. If somebody wants to marry you, your friend wants to marry you, you have to ask for money in a specified amount and that has no limit. You can ask for $3 million. The most people ask for $30,000. Why? If you reflect upon it, that person wants to marry you, right? You want to marry each other, whatsoever. And if he's only marrying you to have sexual intercourse, if he's only marrying you to leave you afterwards, he will think 2 times before giving you the money. But if he wants to stay with you your entire life, it doesn't matter for him to give you $10,000. Why? Because the next time, and the next point will tell you that he is responsible to support you your entire life financially, the man. He has to share his money, but your money is untouchable for him. He can't take your money from a bank account, but you can use his credit card. So, yeah? And the opposite is not possible. Therefore, it doesn't matter for him because he thinks, I have to share my money in that way or the other way. It doesn't matter. So who cares if she gets that money? I give it because out of love. Divorce, she will get the babies. She will get the children. Nursing a baby, it's a difficult thing for a mother to nurse a baby during nighttime. She will get, after a time, very dizzy, after a year, very depressed, because you wake up the entire night to nurse a baby. And that's why, if you don't want to do it, since even if it is known that it is healthier for the children to be nursed, if you don't want to do it as a mother, and the father wants it, he has to pay you. He has to give you a loan. Or, if you still don't want it because you love your sleep more, then he has either, find another person to pay her money to give to nurse the child, or there is no other way. And that's an interesting aspect as well. The position of mothers. As I told you, to obey God is on the first position. To obey the prophets is on the second position. It's the saying of the prophet. And the third position takes the mother. And the fourth position, the mother. And the fifth position, the mother. And after that, the father comes. It's a statement of the prophet, to whom you should show the most love. With love, obeying. And why? Because it's also mentioned in the Quran many times. Because out of the difficulties what a mother goes through beginning with her pregnancy. And be always kindful and respectful against your mother, against your parents, and especially your mother. So it is mentioned. And what kind of opinion she might have, doesn't matter. What kind of belief, doesn't matter. It is just her position, what she had as difficulties during her pregnancy and the first 2 years, which are really, really hard. I mean, I was something like an au pair. It's super, super duper hard, even as an au pair, to take care of a baby. And this is what she, that's the position of the mother. Therefore, we are very carefully in being, we try to obey our mother as much as possible, to love our mother as much as possible. Father as well, of course, but in the case of mother in special, because somehow, if she says, my sweet daughter, please take your jacket with you, it will rain and it's sunny, it will rain in the end, and somehow something happens to me where I regret why I didn't listen to my mom. She has a good feeling. Mostly they have the right feeling for you. And the other point is are the butler rights. This is funny as well. If I, while I'm single, have a butler or maid, and somebody wants to marry me, and I go into marriage, I have a lifelong, the right of asking for a butler or a maid. Why? Because it is not fair that he marries you in that standards to give you a harder life afterwards. You are used to have a maid who does for you this and that. It's not fair. Either don't marry her if you don't have the money, or offer her the same standards. These are the interesting points of women's rights, for example.
I've seen a film, and their Muslim boy said that he could say to his mother what he wants, and
what he wants,
and she has to do this.
To obey him,
yeah.
Not the children. The right of the man, guess what the right of the man is? He is the commander, the leader of the family. So, he has the right to check to keep the house outside in check. Financially, he has to support it, and all this he has to do, and stuff like that. The only right is to decide if there are many opinions, what to do, what is doing in the end, to have the last decision. This is the father, not the son. And this is pretty much the only thing what he can do. And this in very restricted frames. It has to stay inside the laws. He cannot take your rights. He cannot, forbid you something which is your right. He cannot forbid to meet a friend, for example, which he doesn't like, outside. But inside the house, he paid for the entire house. He paid for the, furnitures and everything. He's responsible also for the security of the family. If something happens to you, he is responsible. And that's the reason why he has to take everything in check. But he can, for example, not forbid you to meet someone outside because it's outside his territory. You are free, for example, in that sense. And as long you know your rights and as long he knows his rights, it's not contradicting in any terms. And it's not like, so now I'm I feel like the big boss here, you're climbing up the table on 1 foot, you're, jumping around, something, that weird stuff. No, it's not about that. because we have mostly different opinions. So there will be something like a judge, not judge, like a, you know what we do? We sit always together with children. We did it, no, I'm the last. But we sat all together, my father and my mother, and we're all practicing Muslims. And everyone said his opinion. And my father decided, okay, we go after that opinion or this opinion. And it's like, you know, everyone is a lawyer, explaining, so I do it because of this and that, and I think it's more right to do this and that, or to travel to Turkey because of, to travel to Australia because of, and come, what should we do? And most of case, it was always the case that the most part, whoever, you know, how many people decided that it is acted upon that. But in the strong sense, yes, he has the right to say, even if everybody says no, to say, okay, no, I decided in the opposite side. Because I'm responsible for the security. If something happens, I have to think about it. It's my responsibility. So it's, from that perspective, also reasonable, understandable. So racism. Yay! Yeah, everyone is equal, nothing special. And God says also in the Quran, they are on purpose created in different communities, cultures, to know each other better, to travel around to know each other better. And we have even a penalty if somebody does something wrong. I have no idea which one it was. There are many. Then you have to go and free a slave. It's not something which is actual right now, right? But 250 years ago, it was reality. 250 years ago, the biggest slavery on earth started with bloodshed in Africa and America. So therefore, it's not, oh, hi. And so therefore, it's not so, far away from what we believe in, why it is implemented in the religion to free slaves. So after Islam came up, they started freeing the slaves in Saudi Arabia. They had slaves as well, but not based on skin color. This is something new, which came from the western part. It was based through other conditions. If somebody loses a war against you and you take him into prison, he is either ending as a slave or will be freed. So whatsoever, there exist slaves as well. As soon as the Islam came, they started freeing the slave, entirely till where the territories of the Muslim were, the slavery was almost gone. And you cannot go and just take the slave of another person because he paid for it. So it's more difficult. It would break out in a civil war. That's not needed. You just go and pay for it to free a slave. Not under bloodshed and civil wars. Terrorism. So we hear a lot of Muslim terrorists. So let's go behind it. First of all, whoever watched the movie Schindler's List, have you heard the movie Schindler's List? Yeah? In the end of the movie, they recite a verse of the Quran. And this is this verse. Whoever kills a soul, a human being, a man, it is as if he had slain mankind entirely. And whoever saves one, it is as if he had saved mankind entirely. In the sense of one person is equal to everyone. Not like in the movies, you know, oh, let's sacrifice one person for the sake of us, yeah? Or I don't know in which movies, you know, Bruce Willis and Apollo stuff and so on. No, everyone is counted as important in equal sense. And it's a sin to do otherwise. And what I wanted to say, what we have to learn is to, first of all, to differentiate between defending and attacking. Because if religion calls out that if somebody, for example, if in front of me is a children is slain, okay, killed, and I just look away and say, peace, peace for everyone. Yeah, it's even the meaning of Islam, peace. That doesn't make the religion peaceful. that makes the religion weak. If I see that there is a victim and I interfere, this is a responsibility as a Muslim, that doesn't make a religion aggressive, it makes it strong. But in case of that, what happens nowadays, these are transgressors. These are people who are killing victim peoples. And it doesn't matter whoever they call themselves, Muslim or not. It is my responsibility as a Muslim to go and interfere, to, even if it is needed, fight against that oppressors. For example, in Syria, what they are trying to do in killing straight on the people. This is not allowed. You are not allowed to judge people on their appearance or whatsoever. You are only allowed to judge someone who did something wrong, nothing else. Like you have the feeling, I want to teach you to listen to your feeling, the feeling of which is just and which is unjust, and reflect upon. God is just. He only supports justice and nothing else. If you have a bad feeling, that sounds weird, that sounds cruel, that sounds, that in most of the case, it is even written in the Quran that this is a sin, what they are doing. And this is the case what is happening in Syria. The people are claiming to, for example, do the Islamic State whatsoever and killing around whatsoever. And they must be stopped. They must be stopped. And what they're doing is the biggest sin. The sin of killing, taking a soul. And interesting aspect is the peace contract in Islam. If you have an Islamic state, not in the sense of Syria, the guys of Syria, not in that sense, in the sense of based on sources. In the Islamic state, all the temple worship places whatsoever are untouchable. For example, the church will have this ceremonies, will have their rings, bells, and the synagogues, fire temples, whatsoever. You will see it pretty much in Malaysia as well. Malaysia, it's very good practice. They will have their own judge. If a Christian does something wrong in an Islamic state, that Christian can be judged from his own community. They will give him, he had stolen something, we don't judge him, him by yourself, or you can give it to us. It's up to you guys, to the Christian community, to the Jewish community, and so on. For the policeman, it's forbidden to enter one of these houses entirely, without any reason. I mean, as I saw, the first centuries, it was practiced in a very nice way. In Malaysia, I saw it again, could witness it. It was wonderful. That judges exist in England. The Muslims have their own Sharia judge, where the Muslim who committed something can be judged through the Sharia as well. And it's not common here in the democracy type which we have here in Germany, because, for example, as a Muslim, I'm not allowed to teach at schools. I'm not allowed to have a mosque in the shape of a mosque, to have a minaret, which is not needed. I mean, at that time, they don't have any microphones, yeah? So they build up this minaret to climb on it to call for prayer, because you have to catch in many areas while calling for prayer. But it's just for this, why not? And this is a problem to think about, why it is not allowed. This is the new understanding of secularism, to say no appearance outside which looks like a religion, but the secularism in the true sense means that many religions must be able to live together in peace. This is the sense of secularism, which I saw in Malaysia. The temples are ringing their bells, the synagogues does this and so on, Buddhists and so on, in peace, perfectly, green zone, it works. In an Islamic state. And let's get to the next one, halal and pork versus pork. Halal, we call everything which is slaughtered meat. Slaughtered meat means everything except pork, animals, in the sense of, which is also in the Old Testament, nothing new, that if you kill an animal, it must be from the shortest way without torturing. And first of all, it is not usually it is not allowed to kill any animal or living creature, including cutting trees, whatsoever. Animals has their right. There are rights for animals in Islam. And therefore, if you want to kill an animal only for the sake of eating it, you have to do it under very special conditions. You have to take it in check that the animal is not seen from other animals, like not in the fabrics where they are in row, cut. You have to take that animal away. You have to bring it calm, either if it is needed to cover its eyes, that it comes down. And it should not be ill. Ill animals are not allowed to eat. Yeah, if it sneezes something whatsoever. And in that case, you take a knife, which is where you are sure that it is cutting very sharply. You have to check it, not to torture it. The case is not to torture the animal. It's if you're given life an end, then do it in the shortest way, and not in poking somewhere. You're doing it from the place which is called die Schlagader in German, the arteria. When this is cut, you know it from the armies where when stuff. This part is where you die immediately. That is cut through. And beginning with the arteria here, which pumps here through the heart, all the blood. So they cut the animal from here, and this is, they're pretty much the easiest way. And yeah, this is slaughtered meat. People who believe in the Bible and who believe in the Torah, we call them Ahlul Kitab. These are the people of the book. We have special conditions between us. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm done, okay. And this is that we can marry each other, and that we can eat our slaughtered meat. I can eat the slaughtered meat, whatever meat. I could eat the meat actually from the restaurant outside, except pork. And pork is nothing new. It's also forbidden for Christians and Jews as well. Thank you for listening. And the conclusion, I'm so sorry that it took so much.